All right, welcome back to the channel. So it seems like a fight that seems sure to be made. Canelo Alvarez versus Caleb Plant is off over issues related to the contract that they were negotiating. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. Now, before I get into the subject matter of the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Also, like the video, share the video. It would be greatly appreciated. So I can't help to laugh a little bit about this because I have been watching over the last couple weeks, maybe the last month or so, about Caleb Plant fighting Canelo Alvarez for an undisputed title at 168 pounds. And as I watched and waited, it just couldn't get past my head that Canelo Alvarez was not going to take this fight. And according to ESPN that I got via Michael Benson, they have now Canelo Alvarez team is pulled out of the negotiations, and the fight is apparently dead in the water. Now, what does that mean for Canelo Alvarez? It means that Canelo Alvarez will not be fighting for the undisputed title at 168 pounds because he holds 3 of the belts, but the last belt, which is the IBF belt, is held by Caleb Plant. Now, is it surprising that Caleb Plant and Canelo Alvarez didn't get through that negotiation? Not at all, because it seemed like something that was almost a little bit too good to be true, especially if you look at the resume of the fighters that Canelo Alvarez has been fighting lately. It just doesn't seem like he's been fighting like the best fighters out there. He's been fighting guys like Rocky Fielding, guys like Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, and just a litany of guys that you see him walk in the ring and you figure that, that they really don't have any chance against Canelo. Now, while some people thought this fight with Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders, Canelo and Caleb Plant wasn't a competitive fight, I thought that it was, looking at the way that Canelo has been moving lately, that this was going to be a dangerous fight for Canelo Alvarez. If Canelo Alvarez, because Canelo Alvarez, and you can see this in sparring videos that he's had up, looking at the way that he's fought over the last, several fights, he just fights like somebody that is plodding forward and with a high guard and blocking shots on his gloves and then countering people and breaking their arms down, right, and getting the win. But he just doesn't seem like he has the quickness of foot anymore. I know that there's been problems with his knees been reported over the last couple of years, but just Caleb Plant to me looked like to be a very difficult fight. Now, I'm not sure what tore down the negotiations, even though I have heard that Eddie Hearn is involved in the negotiation. So Eddie Hearn negotiating for Canelo Alvarez to fight over at the PBC. I had a suspicion that in and of itself might cause some difficulties. But as far as what Canelo Alvarez is going to do moving forward, I don't know, what he's going to do if he doesn't fight Caleb Plant. But this will be the second time that he had an opportunity to fight for undisputed, and he didn't take advantage of it. The first time was after he beat Gennady Golovkin and he held the WBC, the WBA, and the IBF. He had one more belt to win, and that was against Demetrius Andrade, and he chose not to fight Demetrius Andrade for undisputed at 160 pounds. So it just seems like this is just history repeating itself, except for in this time, at least he did have some negotiations for it. Now, what does Caleb Plant do moving forward? I'm not sure what it's going to mean for Caleb Plant other than he fights just whoever it is that comes across his plate, whoever his IBF mandatory is, because he's not a tremendous draw where a bunch of people are going to be targeting him. And with all 3 of the other belts being held by Canelo Alvarez, it's just not a lot of options for him. Canelo Alvarez, on the other hand, seems at 168 not to have a lot of options either, because he has all three of the belts except for Caleb Plant, and I'm not sure who there would be that Canelo Alvarez could fight that would necessarily be an exciting or an interesting fight. Now, I have heard that Canelo Alvarez talk about moving up to 175 pounds to fight Arthur Beterbiev, so that could be an option for him to do that. But seeing as he doesn't have any belts, that would be several fights before he could get his hands on undisputed. And I believe that he's probably fighting at a weight class that is a little bit too big for him. I think Canelo Alvarez's natural weight is 160 pounder. So there's also there's obviously the chance that he can move down to do what's right. And this is what I would like to see Canelo Alvarez do. I would like to see Canelo Alvarez go down to 160 pounds and fight Demetrius Andrade, to fight Gennady Golovkin, or fight Jermall Charlo, because I think there's more competition at 160 pounds than there is at 168 pounds. And so that he could be fighting and making, DAZN, the person that DAZN wants him to fight. DAZN wants him to have the trilogy fight with Gennady Golovkin, and that I do believe is not going to happen. Canelo Alvarez said that he would fight Jermall Charlo before he fought Gennady Golovkin. So all of this stuff is just kind of wild, because most people had their mind set that he would be fighting Canelo Alvarez, but that's what you get. You got to pay attention to when people say for sure things are 100% sure, things aren't always 100% sure. The only thing that's 100% sure is that stuff can always come up to upset the apple cart and throw off what you expect. Now, for me, the bad thing about this, or the same thing that upsets with me about this, is I've done videos before. I was hoping that Canelo Alvarez could strike a deal and do business with the PBC, because then if he struck a deal with the PBC, then you have a lot better fights that can be made, because nobody else is, at the key weight class that he's in, 160, because that would at least mean that you could get the Jermall Charlo fight at 160 pounds. You also have the potential for an Errol Spence Jr. fight for Canelo. And that may actually have been one of the things that held up the fight with Caleb Plant, is that the rumor was that the PBC were looking to trying to get 1, 2, or 3 fights out of Canelo, and that's not something that Eddie Hearn was advising him to do. But we'll see as more reports come out, we'll see what turns out with it. But I just can't help but think that this negotiation was kind of dead from the beginning, because you had Eddie Hearn negotiating and representing Canelo Alvarez in the negotiation with the PBC. At least that's my understanding of what was going on. And I don't think Eddie Hearn is going to negotiate in good faith to send his, DAZN's biggest name to a rival for a fight. But that's just my take on the matter. You let me know what you think. And with that, I'm out. Peace.